We've been looking at marriage and home. There's a fellow went to a good friend of his and said, I found the secret. I know how to make marriage last. We go to a really nice restaurant once a week, have a nice meal, relaxing music. His friend said, man, that sounds great. You see, I go on Tuesday, she goes on Friday. Don't laugh at that. That's not that funny. Marriage is one of those rewarding relationships, but it can also be kind of challenging. No other relationship requires such intense, ongoing level of mutual exchange, and sharing of resources and emotions and patience and passion and more. No wonder so many end up in a divorce or stay together out of obligation only. And what about those following Christ? How are we doing in our homes? Well, a lot of people not following Christ, come to find out, they're not in a continuing honeymoon themselves. Can God even use your spouse to strengthen you? Paul understood hurt. He wrote about it very clearly. 2 Corinthians 12:7, very important passage. Paul's writing, because of the surpassing greatness of the revelations, for this reason, to keep me from exalting myself, there was given to me a thorn in the flesh, a messenger of Satan to torment me, to keep me from exalting myself. He said, there's a thorn in my flesh. We don't know what that thorn was. A lot of guesses, but it was certainly something really important to Paul. I'm convinced it's more than a minor irritation. And no, please, no, I'm not suggesting your spouse is a thorn in your flesh. Your spouse is a gift of God given to you. God uses people to mature us and grow us. That home thorn could refer to maybe one thing that your spouse does or doesn't do that you always sigh. Or a different perspective the two of you just have never been able to resolve. It could be a number of things. Many deal with emotional thorns in their life, and that affects their marriage. We're talking about feelings. It could even be loneliness. Some of the most lonely people I've ever met are married. This is because that relationship lacks that authentic connection and their marriage is isolated. They live together but alone. Other emotional thorns could be depression, regret, pain, maybe even bitterness, children's situation, elderly parents. Some thorns are defeated by finance. Even with two incomes, they just can't make the ends meet. It seems like they're just about to come out of the pit and something comes out of nowhere and they're back in debt again. Expense comes along and they didn't even see coming. That keeps them buried. They just can't shake the financial storm. All the pressure, all the joy at home goes. Then there's physical thorns, affects our lives. Chronic illness, disabilities, so many other potential ailments. Or the thorn of your parents, the dysfunctional home that you might have come from, or the dysfunctional home that your spouse might have been raised in. Yeah, thorns come in all kinds of shapes and sizes. We can agree nobody likes a thorn. No matter what it is, no matter where it came from. Paul, the apostle, sure didn't like it. And modern marriages and modern homes probably have a thorn somewhere. Both husband and wife are human. To ignore the thorn usually makes it worse. There's that great old statement, whatever's not talked out eventually will be lived out. Here's the odd part. Paul said the thorn was given to him by God, and he praised God for the thorn. What a weirdo. Or incredibly mature. Could it be that God is in the business of thorn giving before throne giving? Maybe, come to find out, God's not cosmic Santa Claus that's just there to continually bless me. Yes, he blesses us, but he might be really interested in developing us along the way. Could marriage be more about being holy than being happy? Is there a kingdom purpose, maybe even in the thorn? You just cannot understand and enjoy spiritual anointing and be spiritually immature at the same time. Be careful. When you cry out, God bless me, there might be some thorn in that process of blessing you. I think one of the harshest words to describe anybody, useless. Man, that cuts to the quick, doesn't it? But look how Paul chose the term useless. 2 Peter chapter 1, verses 5 to 8. Kind of a long passage, but take a look. Again, Paul's writing. Now, for this very reason also, applying all diligence, in your faith supply moral excellence, and in your moral excellence, knowledge, and in your knowledge, self-control, in your self-control, perseverance, in your perseverance, godliness, and in your godliness, brotherly kindness, and in your brotherly kindness, love. Wow, huh? For if these qualities are yours and are increasing, they render you neither useless nor unfruitful in the true knowledge of our Lord Jesus Christ. He's saying, that thorn helped me in maturity so that I never am useless. I can't imagine being spiritually useless. It helped him. And Paul realized the thorn took me on this journey from here to there, to there, to there. When I have this, I have this, I have this. And I am not useless. So how do you know when you have a thorn? Well, one thing, you may be praying about something, about your relationship or about your home, and it just seems like God's not addressing your prayer. Then begin to ask, are you teaching me something through this thorn? Are you teaching me something through the home situation? One of the reasons that God gives a thorn, he might be trying to show you something brand new, trying to raise you up over and above. Because too many believers in the church begin content with status quo. We get content, I got a relationship with the Lord. I'm living a natural life rather than the abundant life He's calling us to. And because of this, when the thorn comes, we invest time complaining about the thorn rather than seeking out, is there a potential purpose for the thorn? Trying to cover the thorn with distractions. Pro football players cannot succeed in the game without understanding there's pain associated in the game. Back a million years ago when I was at Lew Wallace in the football locker room, there was a gigantic banner I never forgot. If you can't take the pain, you can't play the game. Sometimes real growth, legitimate growth, may come through a little bit of pain. Spiritual growth is defined as learning to apply God's truth in my life scenarios. Well, what if my life scenario is a tough scenario? And I've got to apply God's truth in that tough scenario. Yeah, maybe a little pain. Maturity in your marriage is not just falling more in love. Because I think falling in love is kind of easy. Now we're saying grow mature together. And can your marriage almost be a catalyst to you and to your spouse to now live kingdom life more and more and more? Remember, kingdom, God receives glory from everything in my life. God's design. Paul even said, that thorn keeps me from exalting myself. Interesting thinking, isn't it? Thorns might keep us depending on God. Thorns tend to drive us to God. Hey, when the world collapses, we run to God. What if, it's not going to happen, but what if there never was a thorn in your life, just smooth sailing? Wouldn't you begin to feel like, hey, I could pretty much handle anything? We'd begin to exalt ourselves. We would lose the passion and need for God. Our tendency with no thorn is to forget that we need God. And how different all of our prayer life is when something crashes in on us and we come crying out to God. It may not be wise to always say, God, remove this situation, remove this thorn. Maybe it's not supposed to be removed. He never removed the thorn from Paul's life, whatever it was. And while dealing with the thorn in your home or marriage, bask it in prayer. Ask for grace. Ask for maturity. Ask for discernment. Ask for power. Don't try to pull the thorn out yourself. That usually is a problem. You may be ripping open something God's trying to accomplish in your life, designing you for the future of your home. The difference between a victorious marriage, a victorious home, and a defeated one is how they deal with the thorn. The victorious living in grace of God, the defeated battling the grace of God. Pray clearly about what is the thorn in my home. Everybody's got a spare tire. I never think about it. I'm glad it's there. I never get into my car and say, oh, am I glad I got a spare today. It just never crosses my mind. But whenever I have a flat tire, it's really important. I almost feel like prayer is a little bit like the spare tire in our life. It's stowed away just in case. Should we need it? It's there. It's not really part of our conscience. Kind of like the spare tire in my car, I don't think about it much. It's not really part of our conscience. It's not really part of our focus all the time. But when we need it, thank God it's there. We go rushing there. It's easy to forget. The thorn tells us to pray all the time. Marriages are anemic because prayer life's anemic. Homes are anemic because prayer is anemic. I think it's a little bit like the national anthem. You know, national anthem is at all the pro games, college games, the national anthem is sung, we all do it, but it has nothing to do with the game. We kind of do it to do it. It's a good thing, patriotism, but it never affects the game. Prayer is something we kind of do before the meal, but it doesn't affect our life. It's a courtesy. It's the right thing to do. What would the thorn look like if you prayed about that thorn really daily? Paul's prayers are shocking to me. Let me give you an example. He's praying and writing. Philippians chapter 4, verse 6. I'm going to do the first part. We'll come back to the second part later. But look at the first part. Philippians 4, 6. This is a crazy verse. Be anxious for nothing. Always asking God to grant your needs. Okay. Why is that crazy? He's in prison. Be anxious about nothing? He doesn't know if he's going to live or be executed. Be anxious about nothing? He doesn't know if he's going to live. He has enemies outside the prison working hard, plotting to make sure he gets executed. And he's praying and writing down, be anxious about nothing. The question is, how do you defeat this guy? Worry and anxiety are so much behind conflicts in the home. They're the gasoline to the thorn. Anxiety and worry over health, finance, arguments, the future. My spouse, is my spouse honest? Is my spouse faithful? My kids. And yet Paul, with so much more than that, is facing potential execution, and he says, don't be anxious about anything. This is the same guy that says, pray without ceasing, 1 Thessalonians 5:17. That's what's kind of bothered me. How do you pray without ceasing? I mean, come on. I'm in a restaurant, and I'm walking into the restroom. For God so loved the world, praying. Coming back from the restroom, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come. Getting in the car, our Father who art in heaven. I mean, how do you pray without ceasing? The Bible says do that. I don't know how to pray without ever stopping. It's not reciting a prayer all day, but rather in everything that you do, every part of your life, you are including God's kingdom perspective. You are living out God's kingdom, not ceasing. It's not the spare tire. How would that affect your home? How would that affect your kids? How would that affect your marriage? How would that affect the thorn that's there? Because we do a really good job of compartmentalizing God. God, this is your time right now. Hope you enjoy it. Because once I get to work, that's a different compartment. And then when I'm home, that's a different compartment. And then when I'm doing this, it's a different compartment. And then when I'm doing this, it's a different compartment. And God, your compartment's coming. Hang on, or I'm going to get to you pretty soon. We're really good at compartmentalizing. Because of this, God's worldview and God's kingdom just never is before us. You cannot worry and actually abide in Christ at the same time. It's kind of like you can't be in water and not get wet. You cannot worry and not abide in Christ at the same time. Now, remember that verse, Philippians 4:6? I said, give you the first part. Don't be anxious. In fairness, let's finish it. Philippians 4:6, the second half of that verse. But in everything, by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving. Does that blow your mind? The guy's going to die. With thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. I don't like that. Thanksgiving, the thorn in my life and the thorn that I'm dealing with in my home or the thorn I'm dealing with in my marriage, I have a problem linking thanksgiving with that. And in the middle of all this, prayer is that underestimated power. I saw a prayer definition I'm chewing on. Let me give it to you because I think I love it. Prayer is earthly permission for heavenly intervention. I talk so fast, I'll go again. Prayer is earthly permission for heavenly intervention. I think it's kind of powerful. I think we don't grasp the power of prayer. We tend not to give our worries to God with thanksgiving. Instead, you know what I can do? This is one of my real downfalls. When I'm struggling with the thorn and I'm struggling, I am great at a pity party. You should be invited to one of my pity parties. They're phenomenal. Hats, balloons, everything. Don't you dare laugh at me. You know how to throw a pity party yourself. I love to list the things that aren't going perfect. And in the middle of prayer, we're to grasp prayer with thanksgiving. Paul says, set aside the worries with the spirit of thanksgiving. And you know why that bothers me? Because my worries are real. Your worries are real. The stuff that you're dealing with, the hurts, the worries, the fears, they're not minor. They're real. And they suffocate you. Are we supposed to just forget all these worries and live my life with a head in the sand and everything is just wonderful? No, that's not real. You're not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. But can we possibly set worry aside and replace it with an attitude of exercising faith and gratitude? Because the thing about faith, whenever faith increases, peace increases. No exceptions. If faith increases, a corollary, as faith increases, peace always increases. You know me, I'm not a cliche person. But here's one of those cliches that I like. Peace is not a promise you will not have problems. It is the problems will not have you. I'm not a cliche person, but there's a lot of truth there. Peace is not a promise that you will not have problems. It is a promise that your problems will not have you. Some of us, your problems own you, and you can't grasp the feeling of peace because your mind has spent all day of your life wrestling over the thorn and the battle. That's what, going back to the Old Testament, this isn't new. Isaiah 26:3, look what's written here. The steadfast of mind will keep you in perfect peace because he trusts you. Now, having control over that worry, replacing it with faith, means peace. And the end of that verse is a little weird, isn't it? Because then he can trust you. I thought the Bible was all about me trusting God. But look, you notice how that thing ended? So that he can trust you. If you're living your life on the thorn, if you're living your life in distress, if you're living your life in panic, how on earth can God trust you to represent his kingdom? As we're steadfast in peace, despite what's going on, he now can trust you. Because remember last week, your marriage is that covenant, that powerful covenant. And because it's a covenant, Satan attacks daily the home. You can't change the way you feel until you challenge the way you think. Because what you think is how you feel. If you feel worried about your marriage, worried about your home, you're going to live worried about your home. If you're frustrated about your spouse, frustrated about your home, you're going to live frustrated about your home. That's why taking these thoughts are so important. And that's what Paul wrote. Philippians is dominated by this thinking. Philippians 4, verses 8 and 9. I want you to see this. Look what Paul told these guys. Finally, brethren. So brethren means he's talking to the church. Whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is of good repute, if there is any excellence and if anything worthy of praise, think on these things. The things you have learned and received and heard and seen in me, practice these things, and the God of peace will be with you. Practicing, taking control, replacing worry with faith, bringing peace, and the God of peace will be with you. Now, here's my aggravation. Sometimes we think every thorn is from God. We need to recognize it. We realize, what could God possibly be using this? Why is God allowing this in my life? And how am I going to mature from this? How do I see the potential? That's maturity. But to say every thorn in your life is from God is false. Some of the thorns we put there. I think the deepest thorn, the stronghold of the enemy, is around forgiveness. Remember, we're dealing with spiritual strongholds, so only spiritual weapons can defeat them. And I think one of the great spiritual strongholds the enemy uses as a deep thorn in our life is unforgiven events. Unforgiven events, it doesn't take Satan very long to turn that into a stronghold. Too many couples won't let the sun, they say don't let the sun go down in anger. They let the sun go down. They let the moon go down. They let decades go down. In fact, some unresolved anger goes to the grave and beyond. What about a fellow who was at the World Series Great seats right behind the dugout at the World Series. Imagine what they cost. And the seat next to him was empty. By the third inning, they realized no one's going to sit there. So somebody leaned over and said, I'm a little surprised. This seat's empty. And the guy said, yeah, my wife always comes with me to the ball games, but she wasn't able to come today. And the friend said, don't you have a friend that could take that seat? He said, no, they're all at her funeral. Okay, it's not that funny. But there are tragic marriages that take anger and hurt all the way to the grave. How are their kingdom to understand? How are their children to understand kingdom? How are their spouse to ever understand kingdom and have a kingdom home? The damage by lack of forgiveness. And the problem with this thorn that's so aggravating, we made it. We made it ourselves. We end up paying for somebody else's sin. A coworker did something, a spouse did something, a parent did something, a child did something. And you end up with bitterness in your spirit. Suppose you went to a restaurant and the waiter gave you a bill for $3,500. You say, I had a hamburger, it wasn't that good. He said, no. You're paying for everybody in the restaurant. Would you pay it? Uncle Gene's not going to pay that bill. Why would you pay for what other people ate? But you're paying for what other people did in your life over and over and over. And sometimes your spouse or your kids or your parents or your family are paying for what somebody did to you a decade ago. Unforgiveness has a way of spreading an infection in the entire body. It is a terrible thorn, and it is terrible because we built it. We put it there ourselves. And it creates this symptom. It sets in motion where small marital scuffles become war. Everything's out of perception. The slightest brush or the slightest offense from our spouse, we're waiting to overreact. A 3 is now a 10. The thorn of forgiveness has got to be dealt with and removed. A thorn from God does not need to be removed. We have to focus on how is God using this to mature me, to grow me. The thorn of unforgiveness has got to go before you can move on. It's easier to talk about forgiveness than to do, though. I've got a CD player in my office. I like working on music. And the funny thing about that, I cannot put a new CD in until I get the CD out I was listening to. I really can't put 2 in at once. I don't know that I want to listen. But if I want to listen to something different, I got to take the CD out that's in there before I can put the new one in. It's marriage. You want to go forward, sometimes something's got to go before you can go forward with the new. Unforgiveness has got to go. You cannot expect a healthy, thriving kingdom home until you take out the damage. And forgiveness, first and foremost, is a decision. Don't you love the wording of 1 Corinthians 13? It's called the love chapter, and it is. But in the wording it says, keeps no record of wrongs. Now those wrongs, notice the wording, to split hairs here, the wording is important. It doesn't say, Scripture doesn't justify the wrongs. It doesn't say ignore the wrongs. It doesn't say excuse the wrongs. Now you're enabling the wrongs. No, it says recognize them, but don't keep a record. Some have their thorn, they've got a ledger account of every wrong that was ever done to them. They're drowning in their own thorn that they built. And they want to live victoriously. And the word says, when you have peace, I can trust you. If I'm drowning in the thorn of unforgiveness in the ledger of everybody that's ever hurt me, how can God trust you to carry on the kingdom? That's not a thorn God's using to mature you. That's a thorn you built. And I promise you, Satan is putting gasoline on that thing every day because it's an effective thorn for him. One last joke to make a point. And I want to tell you up front, it's not funny. So don't feel like you owe me a courtesy laugh. I get it. The joke isn't funny, but it makes a very important point. A couple needed a hobby. They wanted to share a hobby together. They decided they would go duck hunting. They thought, well, we need a duck hunting dog. They went to a breeder and got a hunting dog. They went out all excited to do something as a couple. They hunted all day, saw lots of ducks flying overhead, got nothing, no success. Frustrated, she said, we're doing something terribly wrong. He said, well, I don't know, maybe you just throw the dog higher. Don't laugh at that. Come on, don't. I warned you. But the point is important. That's what couples are doing. They're trying to get the dog to do what the gun was designed to do. And then they complain we have no ducks. The dog's not the right weapon. The dog's an ancillary. Yeah, it's good to have a good hunting dog when you go, but the dog's not going to grab ducks in the air. You need the right weapon, the right firepower, or the dog won't do its job, even though the dog's a good thing. My point here is there are couples and homes really struggling, but the core is spiritual. And so the solution must be spiritual. Yes, you can go away for a weekend, you can take a vacation, and it will help your marriage a bit, but it won't solve anything because it's temporary. You could buy a new ring and both of you share this sentimental ring and have a wonderful evening with that ring, and it's a wonderful thing, but the problem will still be there. We're beginning to stretch temporary solutions with temporary solutions and ending up so frustrated. We're throwing dogs at ducks. You can buy a new home. You can move to a new city. Everything is temporary relief until the problem itself is resolved. Until the thorn of unforgiveness, until the thorn that's eating at you is understood and resolved. Everything you do is temporary because everything you do is of the flesh. It's not spiritual, and the issue is spiritual at the core. If it's a spiritual stronghold, it takes a spiritual weapon to remove it. We got to discover the power of strongholds. Temporary relief is wonderful, but the problem stays unresolved. We've got to commit our homes to kingdom and prayer, overcoming strongholds. How strong could your home be? Let the Lord even use thorns in your life that He's allowed, that you're no longer battling against. Paul said he thanked the Lord for it. Wow, he's either weird or mature, isn't he? He thanked the Lord with thanksgiving for the thorn because he recognized it did this, it did this, it did this. Because of how God was using that, he was continuing to mature. There's a thorn that might be of God. Pray about it. Recognize it. And what is the potential God could use that for? There's also a thorn that you put there. Get rid of it. You've got to have victory over that. Because you're not going to be effective and successful in dealing with maturity with the thorn of God if you're still fighting the thorn of you. Let's stand together this morning, please.